everybody, welcome to next session. This is Masoud, our
Hello.
mentor, and I'm the student, Omid.
Yes, of course.
Let's go.
So last session we did a little bit of refactoring. We extracted some functions. So this is the overview of the functions we extracted. So we have 5 or 6 functions: ask shop name, create products, ask customer name. And as you can see, the program reads well now, reads better. And before we had just only one function, one main function, that it was almost 200, 300 lines of code, and we couldn't see that what it is doing. Extracting functions helps us to see the code better. And this is one of the benefits, of course. It has a lot of benefits. One thing I wanted to talk about at this session was that this method of writing program that we are doing is not the best method, is not the best way. And for example, take this global variables at the top. This is not recommended. This is, of course, this is forbidden. This is not recommended, having global variables outside of the functions, which are accessible from each and every function, and every function can access it and can modify it. Because when the programs grow and, for example, become 1,000 line or 2,000 line or more, these global variables start getting out of control, and you cannot see which of the functions is modifying which, and it will be very buggy. Your program will be very hard to debug to see where is the root of the problem. So that's the first thing to bear in mind, that in these sessions, at least till now, we are not going with the best practices. We are just developing something, and eventually we will refactor it, we will make it better, we will use best practices and patterns inside it. So that's the first thing. As I recall, we didn't finish the print the receipt. Printing the receipt just prints each item and its amount, and it doesn't print the total price of each item and the total price of the receipt. So first, I want to continue developing this function so that it will print the total receipt. So if I run the application, ask for the shop name, I enter, then the product P1 1000, and yes, P2 2000, no more products, then the customer name, and then the item product name. So I enter P1, for example, 4, and yes, there are more items. P2, for example, 5 of P2s, no. Then it will print the receipt, and it will say that item 1 is 4 of P1s and item 2 is 5 of P2s. But it doesn't print the total price of each item and the total price of the receipt. So
I think we had another problem. Do you remember that?
What?
Just there are 2 options for do you want to continue with yes or no. If we enter another, I don't know, characters or strings, that will accept it, yes?
No, we did that.
We have solved it?
Yes, we corrected it. As you can see, ask until yes or no. We have refactored, we have extracted as a function. It is a standalone function that it receives a message, and it continue printing that message and asks for yes or no. And if the user neither enters yes, no, or no, then the loop will continue. This function, the thing that this function does is.
And so here we have to write yes or no. No, let me.
Here, is there any more items?
Yes.
It's because the users of this function, we have used it in 2 places. If you press and hold Control and press the mouse click, it will show that you have used this function at line 39 of this file, main KT, and line 58 of this file. Here, the
next
user,
one.
yeah, the user, we have written yes or no at the end, at the end of the message that we are passing to this function. But here we have not passed it. So if we come here and we
Copy that.
no, we want to remove this line, we remove these characters, and we want to defer that concern of printing yes or no at the end of the message here. So any message that the user passes to this function, we want to be concatenated with a yes or no, yes or no at the end. I copied and pasted also here with a plus. And one thing to mention it here, in the Kotlin we have something named string interpolation. I don't recall talking about that in the previous sessions. In Java we didn't have string interpolation. String interpolation is constructing a string and having placeholders inside the string, and then filling those placeholders with the variables and constants and other things. For example, you are constructing this string. You are constructing a string which is a message plus a constant yes or no at the end. So one way to do that is by using this plus sign. Yes, it's concatenating these strings with plus. But the better way is to use. I remember that in Java we had to do something like string dot format. Have you seen this?
I have seen that, but I didn't work with that actually.
In the format, we had to say, for example, I want to have a placeholder here, which is a string, and then yes or no. Then we go ahead and we say that the string placeholder that I just introduced inside the string is message, and fill that with the message, and then return the string. This is the Java way of doing string interpolation. But in Kotlin, there is a syntax, of course, for doing string interpolation. We could have a string, and instead of introducing placeholders, we introduce the actual things. For example, in this string, we say that this string has, for example, a space. Then please place the message here, whatever the message it is, whatever the characters.
Yes, no.
Yes, then another space, then yes, then a space, then no. This will build the string that we want. You know, this is called string interpolation. And it is suggesting that, as you can see these lines underlined, it is suggesting that please alt enter and do this. Yes. And I recall that we had something like here that we, in printing the final receipt, we have built this string, we have concatenated this string with plus signs. But we can do something like this. It's very neat. Item something is something of something. These somethings, we had to introduce placeholders in Java, but here we don't have to do that. Directly, we place the amounts inside the string.
Before that, it has a bracket, yes?
No, it is $sign.
No, before that.
No, there is no bracket.
Okay.
There's the plus signs. And these are the constant strings, and these are the variables of type string. And of course, you can do, if the $sign, if you are, for example, doing 2 plus 3.
That doesn't work?
Yeah, you could do that with braces. Inside the braces, you could do everything. You could call another function, for example, ask shop name. The return type of the whatever this function returns will be concatenated at the end of this string. You could do anything. It is very powerful. You will get used to it, of course. You will be addicted to it. So now the yes or no will be printed at the end of the messages when we use this function. So what were we doing? We were trying to print the total receipt, total prices. Now the program just only prints the amounts of the items inside the receipt. So let's first have a println at the top, which says printing the receipt. Then let's have some more printlns for printing empty lines inside the console. This is the console. And here we have this item product name. It is actually let's rename this to item product name at this index. Naming things is very important. You know, it is very important when you want to return back to your program and see what it is doing and refactor it or add something to it. Item product name at this index. So what this do while loop is doing, it is iterating over the items that the user has entered at the previous stage at ask the item of shopping cart. Inside ask the items of shopping cart function, we have a do while loop which asks for items
Yes.
from the user, and it stores the
Data
product name
name.
and amount at a separate list. It stores the product name inside this list and the amount at this list, and of course they are stored, you know, aligned to each other. For example, the first index at this list is dedicated to the first item.
We have inter.
Yes, and also the first index inside the item amounts list is dedicated to the amount of that item. So we should have that in mind, that we should
Each place in its own position.
Yes. And so the trick here is for iterating over the list is to first have an index starting from 0 and then write a loop which loops until it is less than the size of that list.
Yes.
Then at each iteration we should remember incrementing that index, because if we don't do this, if we don't increment the index at each iteration, this loop will loop forever. It won't stop. It won't.
Yes, it won't reach the end of the list.
Yes, it will iterate forever. The application will hang, will stop, will be stuck. So now we want to have something like val item product unit price. We want to access the unit price of the product that the user has entered at this index. It is of course some number that we should extract it. So I could go ahead and write the logic of extracting and fetching the price of this product here. It may be, for example, 10 lines of code. But I want to write another function because we have learned how to write functions. I don't want to first write the lines and then extract it. I want to directly write a function named, so we start with font, yes, of course. For example, get price of product. And this function should get a product name, which is a string. And this function should return an integer, which is a number. And this integer should be the price of the product that the user has passed to this function. So for the moment, I just return 0, some number for the moment, just for the moment. And I assume that I've written the logic of this function and it is working properly and correctly. And I use it here. I use the function, I say get price of product, and it wants me product names, and I pass the item product name at this index. Item product name at this index. Then this will return me the item product unit price, and then I can do this. I can say that here when I'm printing, I can say that item, for example, 1 is 3 of apples, which is this item amount. Item amount, this star sign as multiplied by this item product unit price. Item product unit price equals, I'm using $sign and I want to do some calculation inside this string. I'm going to actually multiply these
two things together.
Yes, this and this. I'm going to multiply.
It's red, huh?
It is red, and I will tell you why. So for now, I have constructed a string for each item. It will be printed for each item, and it says that, for example, item 1 is 3 of apples, and 3 multiplied by 1,000 equals 3,000, for example. But it is complaining that this one here, the item product amount at this index,
0.
no, it is not 0. It is a string. It is a string. It is
We
not,
have to convert it to int.
yes. And this is the first time that we are doing this. This item product unit price is an integer, but this is a string.
A string with integer is impossible.
Multiplying these two is impossible, is nonsense. For example, you might say that
Multiplying apple to
no, we have, for example, this, multiplying apple to, for example, 32. It is impossible. Or you might say that we know that inside that string we have some number. For example, this. Also, this is not possible
because it is a
because
string.
it is in a string. It is a string. It is not. It might be the numbers, the digits, the characters might be the digits, all the digits, but we have to convert the types. The Kotlin is a strictly typed programming language. It is not dynamically typed. For example, like JavaScript or PHP or Python. There, in JavaScript, if you have a string and you multiply it by 32, it may, for example,
work.
Yeah, it may determine for you on your behalf, and it may see that okay, all the digits inside the string is all the characters inside the string is actually a digit. So I can convert it to a number, an integer, and multiply with the other number, an integer. But in Kotlin, we have to do it manually. We have to state it ourselves. And so this item product amount at this index, the amount, of course, will be always of type int, number. But this item amounts that we have defined here is a list of strings. This list, the product names will be always a list of string, but the item amounts list, of course, each item of this list should be an int, a number, but we have defined it incorrectly.
Okay.
We should first define it as a list of int, of course.
A list of numbers.
List of numbers. So here in the function of asking the items of shopping cart, this will complain that item amounts is a list of integers and you want to add it this item amount, which is a string. And you cannot add a string to a list of integers. So we should convert the string returned. The read line always return the string because we don't know what user will enter. We don't know will it use will the user
or
enter
a string?
Number. So it will always return a string.
We have to be intelligent to do so.
Yeah, we have to convert. But before that, I want to refactor the application, the program a bit more. And I see a pattern is growing here that we have some duplication. And as you can see, we are asking for things. For example, we are asking for item name, for item amount, for I don't know, the shop name, the products, the customer name, and then we are using this read line. We could write a function which asks for user entry, and this function will
call the read line.
Yes, we'll call the read line, and it will have a message. It will have a message. It will prompt this to the user. Then it will call the read line for us, and it will return the return value of read line. So we will have print ln the message, whatever the message is, and then please return the read line. These two signs that I will explain later. And it is complaining that you are returning string,
mismatch.
But the function does not say that I am returning a string. It is saying that I'm returning nothing.
He understands nothing.
Yes. So
or
I
she
should.
Understands.
So I should. It is maybe
the
it's
feminist.
a she.
The feminist will be angry. So it's better use.
So we should strictly state that this function
is a string.
Is returning actually a string. And now we can, for example, use it here. We could say ask for user entry, and then this will return a string, and then we could replace it here.
Very good.
Ask for user entry, and then ask for user entry. We could cut this and paste it here. But this didn't solve our problem. Our problem at the first place was that we couldn't add a string to a list of. Yeah, and we have to somehow convert the string into a number. So I suggest that we write another function, ask for number from user, for example, and we rename it as ask for string from user, for example. So first, for asking a number, there is no function. There is no function inside Kotlin like readLine which will return an integer. We have to first call the readLine and get the string and then convert it back to the integer. So first, we will ask for the string. We have a string.
Ask for the string.
Yes, ask for string from user. It wants a message, so we inside this function we again ask for the message from the caller of this function, and we pass
this message.
Yeah, we pass the message, whatever the message it is, to this function. This will print the message, and this will ask the user for entering something. Then this will return that the entered value as a string to this, and then we have to call a function, a special function named toInt. toInt. There is a function on each
Convert the string to the integer.
Yes, that will convert, and because we are absolutely sure that all of the characters inside this string is a digit, so we can do this. We have not yet talked about the classes, defining classes and so forth inside the Kotlin, and we will talk about classes later. And so far we have only used these simple structures, for example, like do while or if statements, and we have used functions, but we have not used classes yet. And for example, this notion here may be a little bit weird for those of you that have not seen any object-oriented programming language, for example, like Java. You might, for example, expect to do something like this, calling a function toInt and passing our string to it. This is the functional way of doing things here. But Kotlin is a multi-paradigm language. It is also functional, and it is also object-oriented. You can write classes inside it, or you can write no class and only use functions for writing your application program. So the string, this variable, this type of string, and a string is a class. Actually, if we go to here, we will see that the string is a class. It is a class, and the value that will be entered here will be a
name of
instance of that class. And each instance of class has a lot of functions inside it. For example, plus, chars. These are the functions that we can call. Yes, call upon that instance. And this
like the functions we have written in our program.
Yes, this will make more sense the more we advance. So we return this value, and this is also complaining that you are returning an integer and your function
doesn't have any
returning type. So we say, okay, return the integer. Now instead of using ask for string from user here for asking the amount, we ask for number from user, and this will return an integer as the amount, and we will store this as the amount of this item. And now here the item amounts is of course a list of integers, and this item product amount at this index will be of course an integer,
and there we can multiply.
It is not complaining anymore, and we can multiply these two integers. And so now if I run the application now, you will see that the items that the program will print will have extra information at the end of each line, which will say the total price of each item. But I want to store the total prices inside this loop and print the total price of the receipt at the end of the loop. So I want to define a variable, because I want to change the value inside the iteration of the loop. And
the first time that is 0.
Yes, the total price of receipt is, at first it is 0. So the reason I'm defining this outside of this loop is because,
That should be accessible.
yes, I want to access it outside this loop after the loop ends. And if I define it here, the variable or the value will be defined at each iteration.
In this scope.
Yes, this is scope, and at each iteration it will be defined a new one. It will define a new one.
The
And
previous,
the previous one will be gone.
yes,
The previous one will be gone, and we don't want that. We want
we need to save it.
save it. Yes, store it for the later use. So we have this here, and after that, I say that total price of receipt. So actually, first let's have total price of this item is this, multiplying these two. Yes. Let's cut this and paste it here. Then we can use this total price of this item here. Total price of this item. Then after that, we could add total price of receipt equals total price of receipt plus
Total price of this item.
yes, total price of this item.
Each time the previous value will be
Added to
added
the previous.
to the next. The previous value will be added to the next.
Yes. So after this loop finishes, we have access to this total price of receipt,
yes.
and we can print. We can print the total. So total price is total price of receipt. So let's run this application and
See the result.
yes, to see the result. No. First, we have forgotten that the get price of product actually returns 0 at every time.
It should return the number of.
Yeah, no matter the product name, no matter what is the product name, it will return 0. And we have to write some logic here to determine the price of the product. So for that,
we can't directly pass the total price of item. Not total price of item. The things that we have defined it in the top. What was that?
pass what?
There was a variable here. We added a plus it. This one, index of item product. We can't directly pass it, or can?
No. It is actually using the returning result of this. It is actually using this function. It cannot help this function. It is using the returning value of this function. This function will return the
Price.
unit price of the product, and it doesn't know here what is the unit price of this product name at this index. So it is asking this function for that, and so for that, let me just Control Shift minus, collapse all the functions to see the overview of the program. We have two variables, global variables here, which
Our lists.
stores the receipt, the items of the receipt. But we don't have the lists that stores the price, unit price, and the product name, and we need that. So in this function, creating the products, we have these two variables, these two lists that are defined locally in this scope, in the scope of this function, and they will be gone after calling this function. They will be all gone. They will be removed because each variable or value is accessible and it is stored and retained inside that scope. And because after reaching here, the last line of this function, and upon returning from this function, these two lists will be gone. But we want to store them for later usage. We want to access them later.
It should be accessible in the future easily.
Because we are needing them now. We want to access them for getting the unit price of the product. So I cut them and I paste them outside and I make them global. And I suggest that this is not the correct way of doing things, and we will refactor it later. But for the moment, this create products will add the product names and prices to something that is at the outer scope and is global, and it will store them permanently through the lifetime of this application. And inside the get price of product actually has to access these two lists to determine the unit price of the product. So for that, doing that, in order for doing that, it must first iterate over the product names to see which index does equal to this product name. So we have all the product names inside this list and all the prices inside this list. And each index at for example, product name is has the name of the product price at the product prices list. So again, we have to use a while, a loop, to loop over all of the items inside the product names. So I use the do while loop, and this loop must iterate for all of the, as long as the
How many products do we have, and it should
products inside the
decide
list.
the price of each product.
The first item of, I write an index for that, and the index equals 0, and this loop should continue as long as the index is less than
List.
the product name's size.
That's our list, yes?
Yeah, that's our list that we are going to iterate. And at each iteration, we must remember to increment by 1 the index, because
each time we iterate, we have to add 1.
Yes. So at first, so at each iteration, we will ask if product names index, if the product name at this index equals to the product name the user has passed to this function. Now, if they match, if they equal to each other, so we have we have determined the index that the product name has inside this list, and we can use this index to access the prices, access the price inside the prices list. And we can say that, okay, I want to return directly from here, from the function, return product prices index. And it is complaining because the product prices is a string, and we want to return an integer. So here again, the product prices, we have mistakenly defined it as a list of integer, and we must define it as list. As a string.
We must define it as
integer, because the prices are integer after all. And here again, it complains that you are using this read line. So we use the function that we wrote before, ask for number. We cut and paste it here. Again, we used ask for number. We refactor this line to make it more readable. Ask for string. Sorry, so here is a string because we are asking for product name, and here we are asking for number as the product price. And then it will work if this loop ends, and it doesn't find the product name that is passed inside this list. This will exit this loop,
and we should return
we must return something. We have not found our product price. We could, for example, we can throw some exception to indicate that the product name that you have entered inside the receipt, inside the basket, the shopping cart, is not defined. You have not defined it before. But for the moment, we assume that the entered products
works correctly.
Yes, the entered products is actually defined previously, and we will return 0 for the moment. But we know that the program will not reach this line. We are assuming that the user has entered all the values correctly. So inside this,
if it doesn't work, it returns 0.
Yes, it will return 0.
If it works, what will it return?
This will.
We didn't write any other return. Okay. Yes.
This will return from here.
Yes, I'm trying to point this.
It does not have to finish this loop in order to return from function. Inside the function,
each time it returns.
Inside the function, when you have a return statement, whenever it reaches a return, this will return from there, and it
doesn't stop.
Yeah, this won't continue doing whatever it was doing.
In Java, it stops. Yes.
No.
No,
it will stop. It will actually stop. Yes, it won't. The function will stop and will return from there.
Return it again. Index plus plus. Then the index condition is correct. Then come back to the first.
No.
Here we have a do condition.
Let's assume, for example, it traces twice. And
yes,
at the third one, at the third time, at the third
They are
index,
equal.
they're equal. So
And the
this will
passes.
return from here. The function will return from here, and the rest won't execute. It won't execute.
I got it. When they are not equal, index goes and iterate the list. Yes.
Yes, it's with iterate. Then
I've got the point. Yes.
and so if we run the application, actually, shop
Without
name
any error.
P1000. Yes, I want to define another product, P2 2000. Let's add another product, P3 3000. Do you want to define another product? No. Please enter customer name, customer. Please enter item product name. I should be very cautious here to add the correct defined product names because I want the program to work correctly. Because this function that we have written here is dependent on entering the correct values of products that have been defined
We have
before.
to be careful about it.
Yes. So I carefully write P1 because I have defined P1 here. And I say, what happened? Oh, because I entered here. Let me see this number format. Please enter item product name. Item. Oh. It didn't print the ask
Amount of item.
or number. Why? It should print. Why? Let's run the application again. Shop P1000. Yes. P2 2000. No. Customer P1. Okay. Please enter the amount of item. For example, 2. Yes, I want to add more items of P2. For example, 5 of P2s. And then I say no. I want to print the receipt. This is printing the receipt. Item 1 is 2 of P1s. 2 multiplied by 1,000 is 2,000. Item 2 is 5 of P2s, and 5 multiplied by 2,000 is 10,000. And it totals to 12,000. And it's working correctly because we have entered the correct products.
Input.
So with this, I want to end the session. And at the next session, we will continue.
Correct.
And yes, we will
Refactoring and then
we will define. We will continue until we define a user interface for the manager of the shop to manage his or her shop whenever he wants. For example, now he has to or she has to create his products every time of the program, and then he could only define the products just once.
Very good. That would be better, bigger and bigger.
Yes. So
Good. Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.
Thanks for watching us. Subscribe our channel, share it. Whenever you have question, you can write it in the comments.
Yes, we will.
We'll try to answer it quickly. Bye bye.